Hi, everybody. My name's Tristin Clark, and in this presentation, I'm going to be talking about the effects of logging in terms of on the environment as well as in society. So to start off and to fully understand this whole concept, we need to know what logging really is. So logging is defined as the activity or business of felling trees and cutting and preparing the timber. Now, there can be potential misconceptions about this because there's a lot of jobs that involve forestry as well as cutting trees, but logging specifically pertains to cutting and preparing the timber to bring it to the mill or whatever facility it is going to be brought to. So there are three main harvesting practices or types of cutting that logging involves. The first being selective cutting. Now, selective cutting basically is only removing certain trees from an area. Now, these certain trees can either fit different guidelines or, like for Forest Service jobs, these trees are generally marked to be cut. So as far as the guidelines go, these trees could be growing too close together or a variety of other things that are specified in the contract of the area that is being logged. The next harvesting practice is called clear cut logging. Now, clear cut logging basically involves cutting every single tree in an area, hence the name clear cut logging. So this is important for basically clearing an area for infrastructure or other reasons. And the third harvesting practice is called shelterwood cutting. Now, shelterwood cutting is a little more complicated. It involves the process of several different cuttings, basically to remove undesired trees to promote the growth of desired trees. Generally, this kind of cutting is aimed at the growth of promoting new trees to grow, so new forest growth. So why logging is done, or the purposes of logging, you could say, involves a bunch of different things, with the first main thing being the first and actually most obvious thing I should say is it provides a variety of wood products. So lumber, for instance, is important for building and other things. Paper products come from trees, and just a variety of other things that are actually byproducts of wood. The next reason logging is done is for forest management. So one of the biggest things with this reason involves thinning. So it kind of promotes the overall growth of forests. A variety of other things that I'll get into later, but just overall forest management. Another reason is for land clearing. So this pertains specifically to clear cutting that I mentioned before. Now, this is used to basically, you need to clear an area for infrastructure or roads or variety of other things. And lastly, the last reason specifically pertains to salvage logging, which is basically to capture the economic growth that would otherwise be wasted or just not utilized. So salvage logging is a perfect example of this because salvage logging occurs in an area after some kind of disaster happens. Now, this disaster could be either a flood or severe winds, or in Plumas counties, where what happens in Plumas County a lot is after a fire. So salvage logging basically goes in, gets all these trees that would otherwise be wasted and gets some sort of economic value out of them by in turn turning them into lumber or a variety of other products. So a couple of the main harmful effects that people associate with logging involve the increased risk of erosion. So basically, as this picture shows on the right, this is called a skid trail. Now, the skid trail is where a skidder comes through and pulls all the logs into the landing. Now, erosion is a particular problem with wet ground, as you can see, because it produces ruts, which in turn collects water and continues to grow those ruts. Another potentially harmful effect is it could potentially remove important wildlife habitat. So important trees or snags or a variety of other things. And the last and probably the biggest harmful effect, as well as concern that people associate with logging, is called deforestation. Deforestation is basically just destroying or completely eliminating parts or a whole forest. Um, Now, one big thing I want to note, most negative effects are a result of irresponsible or unlawful logging practices and forest management. So, with the exception of erosion, because erosion is going to happen, although there are limits and standards in place and contracts on the areas that are logged that kind of force you to limit the erosion. But as far as important wildlife habitat and disturbing them in every area that is logged, a certified forester has to go through and they do things like, so they mark important wildlife habitat. So like snags, for instance, are important for different things, and creek zones are important for fish and everything else. And these foresters go in and they mark off areas where you cannot cut trees and you cannot drive logging equipment through, with the hopes that we will not disturb them, or loggers will not disturb them. Now, deforestation, on the other hand, could be a result of both irresponsible as well as unlawful logging, specifically on the forest management side. In every area that you log, there's a contract that states what you can and cannot cut. And honestly, deforestation is just a result of basically irresponsible forest management, allowing loggers or whatever else to come in and cut these areas. And if they are cutting these areas, without proper authority or something along that nature, it's basically just illegal. So for the benefits of logging, I talked about improving forest health a little bit, but it improves forest health by, one, reducing the competition among trees for sunlight and nutrients. So for instance, if you have a lot of trees in one area, they're fighting for sunlight and they're fighting for the nutrients that's in the soil. It also prevents the spread of diseases. So specifically, if there's an area with dead trees that are diseased, it limits that, because these deadened trees are basically taken out of the environment away from the other ones. So it reduces the risk of spreading that disease. It also, which is a big factor in Plumas County and California, pretty much everywhere as of recently, is it decreases the fire risk and intensity by reducing the fuel load in that area. Now, this is one of those things where it's pretty obvious to see, because if, say for instance, there's an area with a lot of trees in, if a fire goes through there, it's definitely going to grow a lot faster and burn a lot hotter than if a place that was properly maintained and spaced out. It also promotes future growth. Now, this kind of goes back to the thing of reducing the competition among trees for sunlight as well as nutrients, which are both key things in, a strong, healthy growth of a tree. It allows more sunlight to reach. It also allows more sunlight to reach the ground, in turn helping out the smaller plants. And in terms of, like I said, the products that is essential from wood, like lumber and a variety of other wood products. And lastly, one big thing that not a lot of people know is the timber industry actually supports an estimated 54 million jobs all over the world, whether it be formal or informal. Now, this doesn't specifically pertain to loggers, but also to mill workers, a variety of other jobs. And the timber industry also contributes $600 billion to the global economy. So on top of all the benefits to the forest, it also economically benefits a lot of people and provides a ton of jobs all over the world. So this is my works cited slide. I hope you learned a lot. I hope that if you have one kind of opinion on logging, you kind of be able to see both sides of it. And so thank you.